In New Orleans, people line up around the block for a cup of coffee that hides a small secret. A good part of what is in that cup is not coffee at all. It is the roasted root of a plant growing wild in the gravel along the highway. And for one strange stretch of American history, putting that root in your coffee was treated as a crime. Slip it into a tin of ground coffee in the 1880s, and you were a clever merchant stretching $1. Do the same thing 20 years later, and a government chemist could seize your goods and call you a fraud. The root never changed. Only the law did. Welcome to nature's lost vault. This root did not begin as a criminal. It began as a rescue. The plant behind all of this stands along roadsides and field edges through the summer on stiff, tall stems, carrying flowers a soft, faded blue, the kind of plant most people drive past 1,000 times without once asking its name. Underground, though, it grows a thick, pale taproot, and that root is where the whole story lives. For most of history, it was simply food and medicine. The turning point came in Europe in 1806. Napoleon Bonaparte could not defeat the British Navy, so he tried to ruin Britain with a continent-wide embargo he called the Continental System. One casualty of that embargo was coffee. The beans that reached Europe by British-controlled sea routes stopped arriving, and across France, the morning cup went empty. The French answer grew in their own fields. Roasted dark, ground, and brewed, the pale root poured a bitter, nearly black drink that looked like coffee and carried its own deep, nutty flavor. The root was chicory, and the drink had a name of its own, Café Chicory. This was not a brand new idea. 40 years before, Frederick the Great of Prussia had squeezed coffee imports to protect his treasury, and his people had already reached for the same plant. But Napoleon made it a habit for an entire nation. And here is the part that mattered. When the blockade ended and real coffee flowed again, the French kept it. They had grown to love the taste, and they carried it with them across the ocean. It found its true home in New Orleans. This was a French city at heart, and long before any trouble started, its people had already folded chicory into their coffee out of pure preference. Then the trouble started. When the Civil War came, New Orleans was the second busiest coffee port in the entire country, its docks stacked with beans bound up the Mississippi. The Union Navy shut that harbor down. What the British blockade had done to Napoleon's France, the Union blockade now did to the South. Coffee turned scarce, and then it turned ridiculous. Over the course of the war, a pound of coffee in the Confederacy climbed from about $1.20 to nearly $200. So New Orleans leaned harder on the root it already trusted. People stretched their last real beans by cutting them with roasted chicory, and when the beans ran out completely, they drank it alone. One of the vendors who kept that habit alive was a formerly enslaved woman remembered as Rose Nicode, who sold coffee in the city's open markets and became something of a legend for it. A little coffee stand that opened its doors in that same year, 1862, was Café du Monde, and it has been pouring coffee cut with chicory every day since. When the war finally ended and the ships returned, the rest of the country dropped it without a second thought and went back to pure coffee. New Orleans never did. There, it had stopped being wartime thrift and become something closer to identity. And that difference is exactly where chicory earned its criminal record. Everywhere outside New Orleans, mixing it into coffee stopped looking like tradition and started looking like cheating. Here is how it ended up on the wrong side of the law. By the 1890s, the American grocery shelf had become a swamp of fakes, and the government's chief chemist, Harvey Wiley, was sent to clean it up. Wiley put ground coffee under the microscope, and by 1892, His Bureau of Chemistry reported that around 87% of the coffee samples they tested had been cut with something cheaper. Some of it was harmless, like chicory. Some of it was not, like sawdust, ground acorns, and roasted beets. But in the public mind, chicory got filed in with the sawdust. One more thing dishonest sellers hid in your coffee to pad the weight. And that wasn't even the part that made people angry. The anger came from the label. Before 1906, a merchant could fill a tin mostly with chicory and still stamp the words "pure coffee" across the front, and no law could touch him. Then Congress passed the Pure Food and Drug Act, signed on the 30th of June, 1906, the same law that created the agency we now call the FDA. Overnight, that tin had to tell the truth. If chicory was inside, the label had to say so. The root had done nothing but taste good and stretch $1. But the moment the law demanded honesty, chicory became the evidence of a lie, the cheap thing a dishonest coffee was hiding. For a while, the reputation was survivable. Then, technology finished the job the law had started. After the Second World War, cheap instant coffee poured into every kitchen in America. Now anyone could have a hot, strong cup for pennies, with no beans to grind and nothing to stretch. The one job chicory had always done, making a little coffee go further, simply stopped mattering. And so the root that 2 continents had once depended on slid quietly out of the American cup. If chicory had held on anywhere but New Orleans, this might be a different story. It didn't. It fell back to the roadside and the field edge, a tall, blue-flowered plant that almost nobody could name anymore, out of fashion and out of memory, until a laboratory in the 1990s gave it a reason to matter again. In 1995, 2 scientists, Glenn Gibson and Marcel Roberfoy, published a paper in the Journal of Nutrition that handed the world a word it now sees on yogurt lids and supplement jars everywhere: prebiotic. It means a fiber your own body cannot digest, but the good bacteria in your gut can, so feeding it feeds them. And the fiber they built that entire idea around came from the root of the chicory plant. It is called inulin. Here is the irony, sharp enough to cut. The very thing that got chicory branded a cheap adulterant, that it was mild, blendable, and cheap to grow, is the exact same thing that makes it valuable now. In 2018, the Food and Drug Administration, the descendant of Wiley's own bureau, formally recognized chicory root fiber as a dietary fiber, singling out real evidence that it helps the body absorb calcium and hold on to bone. The same government that once treated the root as proof of fraud now blesses it on a nutrition label. And the timing of what happened next was almost too perfect. Once the science was in, the cheap root became a commodity worth fighting over, on one condition: it had to be processed. A plant growing free along the highway earns no one a profit. But wash it, dry it, chemically pull the inulin out, refine it to a fine white powder, give it a trademarked name, and suddenly you have a product. That is precisely what happened. The chicory fiber hidden in your protein bar or your gut health supplement most likely comes from a small handful of European companies whose brand names you have never seen on a shelf. Orafti, Frutafit, Oligo Fiber. Every one of them, chicory root. Together they feed an inulin business worth close to $2 billion a year, and chicory is by far its single largest source. So the wheel comes all the way around. The cheap adulterant that once got merchants prosecuted is now the premium ingredient that gets them paid, sold back to the public in a jar for the better part of $30. So how do you get the real thing, the whole root, instead of the powdered extract? Chicory still grows across most of the United States. The same tall stems, pale blue flowers opening along roads and fields from early summer into fall. The young leaves, picked before they turn bitter, make a sharp and pleasant salad green. But the cup is the point. You dig the root in autumn, when the plant has drawn its strength back down into the ground. You scrub it, chop it, and roast it low and slow until it turns dark brown and smells like a bakery. Then grind it and brew it exactly like coffee. What comes out is deep, nutty, and completely free of caffeine, with the inulin still inside it, whole, not stripped and sold back to you. Start with a small cup and work up over a week or two, because that same fiber that feeds your gut can also make it grumble if you rush. Brewed patiently, it is the outlaw cup itself, the one New Orleans never gave up, and the rest of the country was taught to be ashamed of. Chicory never had a secret, and no one stole it from you. It just had the bad luck to be cheap, and the strange fate of being 3 different things in 3 different centuries. A rescue during a war, a fraud under a microscope, a luxury on a health food shelf. The plant standing in the gravel today is the same plant a French soldier roasted, the same one a New Orleans widow poured, and the same one a chemist once seized as evidence. Nothing about the root ever changed. Only what we decided it was worth. Subscribe to Nature's Lost Vault. The next vault opens soon.